Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ella, and today I thought I would do like a review of all of the books that I've read so far this year. I haven't talked about the books I've been reading this year because I'm a little bit behind on my reading goal, which is kind of sad, but I still have time to make it up. Obviously, it is only April, but I'm like 5 or 6 books behind, so I don't have a lot of books to talk about. I've read, I think, 8 books so far this year, but I do want to tell you about them because I have found some really good ones. So let's just jump into it. So the first book that I read this year was actually an audiobook that I checked out from Libby, and that was Requiem for the American Dream, The Principles of Concentrated Wealth and Power by Noam Chomsky. This was like a 4-hour long, short little audiobook where he talks about wealth inequality. I believe it's like the 10 steps to being, I can't remember, honestly, if I'm telling the truth. I remember that I liked it and I resonated with it, and I like Noam Chomsky and his beliefs, but I feel like when you read a book where you're so closely aligned, it's harder for me to remember like specific details, because when I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, of course, like I agree with everything you're saying and I've thought about it before. So it's hard for me to differentiate what he was saying and what is things I've heard in the ether and thought before anyway about wealth inequality. I think it was very good, and you should definitely listen to it if that's something you're not super educated on, because he has a really great way of putting things. And I would like to own maybe a physical copy so I could reread it and annotate it, because listening to something like that also makes it a little harder to remember. But I remember I liked it. I gave it 4 stars, so there you go. Next, I read The Push by Ashley Audrain. I actually started this in December, but I finished it in January. This is a shorter story. It is a thriller. It is about this woman who gives birth to this girl who she thinks is kind of weird. The daughter is a little bit psychopathic, or is she? Or is it just the mom who's like perceiving things in a weird way? It was very cool and interesting to me. I've seen on the Goodreads reviews where people have said that this isn't very original. This is the first type of story I've read where it's like mother-daughter pitted, daughter might be a psychopath, but we don't know because we're just in the mom's head and she's kind of unreliable. There is a twist about 50% of the way through, obviously. It's good. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It read quick, short chapters. Very fast paced. I would definitely recommend it if you're into thriller and maybe like women's lit weird type things like that. Next, I read/listened to The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I listened to this on Libby, but I have this physical copy as well. This is very interesting. It's historical fiction. It follows a main character, Hiram. I cannot remember how to say his name because I listened to the audiobook in like January. Sorry. But he is born a slave on a plantation, and throughout the course of the story, he sort of learns that he has a magical power where he can kind of transport himself or people different places based on like memory and song and things like that. It's magical realism, historical fantasy. The characters are really interesting and heartfelt. It's very emotional and it's very interesting, but at certain points the magical realism is kind of hard to follow. Like, I'm not sure what the rules of it are, especially listening in audio form. I was kind of losing that a little bit. I think I gave it 4 stars. It was still very good. I really like Ta-Nehisi Coates' nonfiction writing, so I wanted to read this, and I would recommend it if you like historical fiction and books like that. It is emotional though. Obviously, it takes place like during slavery on plantations and stuff, so be forewarned. Then I listened to A Court of Mist and Fury on Libby. I listened to A Court of Thorns and Roses last summer. I did not really like it. I also don't really want to financially support the author because she is a Zionist, hasn't denied it. I didn't really like this book. Everyone was saying like, oh, the first one's not very good, but you will probably like the second one. It's just kind of flat. Like it's not that interesting or like super duper unique, and it's just not for me. And it's like it's got to be extraordinary for me to want to continue reading it, especially knowing the personal views of the author, which are important to me when I'm reading a book. So I'm not going to continue. I think it's just not very well written and not super interesting, and there's better romantasy out there. Next, I listened to One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This was my Valentine's read. It is a sapphic romance with magical realism. It follows this main character who, of course, I cannot remember her name. She moves to New York and she moves into an apartment she has roommates who become her close friends, and they are really great side characters. I love all of them, and their interactions are so awesome. And then she boards the subway and she has this very flirtatious interaction with this very attractive leather jacket wearing lesbian woman. And she continues to see this woman in this same outfit every time she boards the train. And I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. I think this might be even in the synopsis, I'm not sure. The magical realism part comes in that this woman in a leather jacket is stuck on the train and she cannot leave the train, and she is from the past. So through some sort of time loop issue, she got stuck on this train and now she's here, and there's a budding romance, and it's very sweet and cute and wholesome and a little bit spicy, not that much, but I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, you should definitely read it. Next, I listened to The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is my favorite book that I have read so far this year. I gave this 5 stars. It is one of the most well-written books I have read in a while. I think it is so powerful and raw and real and incredible. I was tearing up at multiple points throughout the book. Synopsis is we are following Star, who is I think 16, and she witnesses her friend Khalil get killed by a police officer. Her and her friend are black, the police officer is white. So the main themes are police brutality on Black Americans, but there are a lot of other themes that are just explored so well, like interracial relationships and fake friendships, and Star has to sort of be 2 different people, or she thinks she does because she lives in the hood, but she goes to a preppy white school, so she's different people depending on who she's around. I think this is so well written and targeted towards teenagers. I think if you are a teen, or if you have teens, or if you're a teacher, this is a really good book for them, especially just the way it's written. I think it speaks to that audience very well. But obviously, if you're older, you can read it and enjoy it. I did. And the movie is very good as well. If you're interested, I would recommend the movie too. I love this book. I want to get a physical copy to have on my shelves. And there is a prequel about Star's dad called Concrete Rose that I also hope to read this year. So if you're interested in books like that, you should definitely read The Hate You Give. Next, I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I liked this one. It did take me 2 months to read. I think it wasn't helping my slump very much. It's very cute. It's about 250 pages long. The problem for me was that it's about 4 chapters long, which means each chapter was 40 to 60 plus pages, which is difficult for me. So it took me a long time to get through it. I really liked the final 2 chapters, but the first one didn't really hook me as much as I was hoping. So just be forewarned that it is long chapters, if that's something that you're going to struggle with like I did. But I am interested in continuing the series, so I will probably want to do that. And like I said, I probably would give it 4 stars. It was cute and cozy, and there was some really sweet emotional moments. So if you're interested in the literary fiction kind of magical realism of this world, then you should check it out. And then my most recent read is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is the 3rd book in the Empyrean series, which is the 4th Wing series if you weren't aware. I'm obviously not going to talk very much about the plot of this book because it is the 3rd in the series, but if you didn't know for some reason, 4th Wing is like an adult romantasy series that follows these dragon riders. They go to this school called Bazigath College, and they become dragon riders, and a lot is happening, obviously, with the plot. This book I felt was much better than the 2nd book in the series, which was Iron Flame. I think this is my favorite in the series, if not as good as the first one for me, because it was more plot focused and we got to see more about the dragons, which are my favorite part. So if you're thinking about picking this one up and you haven't yet, I would recommend that you do. I think it's an improvement. I think it's really good, and a lot of interesting plot stuff is actually happening in this book. So there you go. I think I gave it 4 stars. I liked this one a lot. And that is every book that I have read so far this year. Please let me know what you have been reading in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!